Sportsbet is powered by BetOnline, driving the opening odds market since 2001. Visit sportsbookreview.com to learn more about BetOnline and its A+ rated platform in the link below.
Boom! Welcome into Sportsbet. Betting Insight today, Pauly and Teddy. Weekend preview edition. That means NFL. Big one. Vikings and the Redskins. We'll get to Dallas and Atlanta. We also have the Saints and Bills. Who thought this would be a huge game in August? Now we got a monster matchup in Buffalo. And Sunday Night Football, the Patriots off the bye take on the Broncos. All that straight ahead. Bad beats, bad bets, bad for the books. We will call this, in my opinion, bad for the books. Thursday Night Football. Seahawks open 5.5, close 6.5 in most spots. Boom, right in the middle, 6. You could see it coming. Backdoor was wide open. Arizona scores with 20 seconds left. The extra point, blocked. And Lane is the guy who did it, who was traded for Dwayne Brown, but he failed the physical, so he's still on Seattle. He blocks it. There was a big safety. As we told you on Sportsbet, they will shut down Peterson, 29 yards on 21 carries, and they pounded the under from 42.5 down to 40, 22-16 Seattle, but Sherman out for the rest of the year.
Yeah, and certainly from a betting perspective, the story here is a bizarre middle and a really bad result for the house with, when it opens 5.5, closes 6, 6.5, it's not a huge window there for it to land right in the middle, but the blocked extra point off the backdoor score. I was like, is that a bad beat? No, it's not a bad beat. Arizona wasn't the right side in that game. Seattle wasn't the right side in that game. I'll tell you what, though, if you watched Sportsbet yesterday, we nailed it, Paulie. We nailed it with the penalties for the Seahawks. Arizona's first 2 drives, they had, I think, 5 of their 6 first downs came on penalty. The first 2 scoring drives, and they had the garbage drive late at the end of the ball game. And, of course, we nailed it with Adrian Peterson not being fresh and ready off the short week and the career high in carries. So hopefully prop players were able to cash in, betting some AP under last night. Speaking of unders, the under cashed in. That wasn't good for the house. The game landing right in the middle, that wasn't good for the house. Let's call it what it was. This is a bad night for the books and a bizarre finish, point spread-wise, to a pretty lousy Thursday night football product.
Yeah, and, all the injuries, that what doesn't help. The other thing doesn't help, what the hell's a catch anymore? It's ridiculous. It's out of hand now. 100 guys in a sports bar, that's a catch. With what happened with Arizona, it's ridiculous. Bad bet. What in the world was this? Ball State as high as 32.5, down to 28.5. It opened 32 at the South Point here in Vegas. Ball State destroyed 63-17 by Northern Illinois. This might be the worst 6-game stretch ATS history. Look at the last 6 games for Ball State. They have lost 63-17, 56-14, 58-17, 58-9, 31-3, and 55-3, and they took money.
Yeah, well, you read the final scores against the spread. This is a team that had failed to cover by 39.5, 23.5, 43.5, 14, and 17 points in their previous 5 games. And now again, last night, they failed to cover by 17.5 points. That's 155 points short of the spread over the last 6 games. And yet the wise guys were betting them last night. Baffling to me, Paulie. Obviously, Ball State a sinking ship. And the money that came in on them, that was wrong. We'll call it a bad bet.
And we told you, hey, North Carolina was ready to go off this bye. They hung in there against Miami, and as a 9.5-point dog, they won at Pitt outright. And the total went from 53 down to 50. Bad bet there as the game flew over the total.
Yeah, line movers never had a chance in this one. The opening kickoff gets returned for a touchdown. When you have an under and the opening kickoff gets returned for a touchdown, you're screwed already. It got to 51 by the third quarter, but 58 by early in the fourth. All that under money goes to the books. NC Pitt under was a bad bet.
All right, the second straight Laker game that was flying over, and it died in the fourth quarter. Bad bet. Lakers-Wizards total 220 up to 224. It was 42-39 in the second half. What happened? Game died in the second half again.
The pace has been there for the Lakers. The offensive execution is another story entirely. Look at this tweet from ESPN Stats and Info. Lonzo Ball and all the hype. Well, let's see. He went 3 of 12 in the loss to the Wizards. He now has the second worst field goal percentage through 12 games in the shot clock era. And if you're wondering for who had a worse shooting percentage in his first 12 games, Wayne Hightower. He's right there on the list with Art Harris, Cliff Mealy, and Wayne Hightower. Those are three guys you don't want to be associated with this early in your NBA career.
No, this is definitely cause for concern. I know a couple people who went to some summer league games here in Vegas when the Lakers played. Guys who cover the NBA but had never seen Lonzo play in person before, all commented that his three-point shot curves. They've never seen it before. Between that and the form, disaster. Maybe buyer's remorse on the Lakers early on. He can't shoot. All right, pros versus Joes. What do you have with the pros?
Sure, 23-15 year to date, 2-2 last week. It's been pretty mediocre for the better part of the last month, but pro money's come in on Pittsburgh. The Steelers' statistical profile now looks like one that is as good or better than any in the NFL. Wise guys don't want Indy this week. The money's come on the Chargers going against Jacksonville. LA coming off their bye. They've been an attractive choice. The Cleveland Browns, another team coming off their bye, taking money against the Lions in a divisional sandwich spot. The Atlanta Falcons. This is a legit pro versus Joe split in this contest. Pros like the Falcons, Joes like the Cowboys. And, of course, the New York Football Giants have been an attractive choice for the wise guys this week. Giants taking money against the winless 49ers, despite all the reports of locker room turmoil.
That's right. Well, 0-9 team shouldn't be favored. The Joes, they like the Jets on the road. Why not? It's Fitzpatrick against his former team now. Same thing for McCown, but Evans is suspended. Saints taking money on the road against the Bills. Bills are 4-0 at home. They don't buy Savage. I agree with them. Rams laying a lot of points on the road. They like the Cowboys and the Patriots off the bye.
Yeah, and of course, going back to Giants 49ers, because this is such a fascinating game that we're not going to talk about because no one's talking about Giants 49ers. But worth noting that Kyle Shanahan's not going to let Jimmy Garoppolo go at quarterback because he does not want him to get over. Run over, I should say. CJ Beathard took 16 hits last week, and Garoppolo, his NFL career didn't last. His first stint as a starter didn't last long because he got hurt. 49ers looking to avoid that mistake with Garoppolo here and their banged-up offensive line.
Big game breakdown up next. We'll start with the first place Vikings against the Redskins, and we'll get to the big matchup in Buffalo coming up on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.
Hey guys, thanks for stopping by Sportsbook Review, YouTube's largest sports betting channel. Every day we're here giving you the most up-to-date news and info, all to help you make the best bet. On top of that, guys, it's free. So look, do us a favor, click the like button, subscribe to our channel, leave a comment or a question. Our goal here is to make sure that everyone becomes a smarter, better. So join the SPR Army today and start winning with Sportsbook Review.
Back on SportsBit, Betting Insight today, big game breakdown. Always sponsored and powered by BetOnline. Check out the bonus page, sportsbookreview.com. And as we tape all these games here, check out the live odds, SBR odds and SBR picks for the new information and the latest odds. Vikings and the Redskins, Minnesota 1.5 on the road, 42 the total. Bradford placed on IR. Bridgewater's back, but the Vikings are in good hands with Keenum, who's played well. They are 6-2, and on a bit of a winning streak as well. Tough test here for the Vikings, though, as 4 of their next 5 are on the road. Zimmer on Bridgewater. He hasn't had training camp. He hasn't done anything. We're trying to get him to where everyone feels comfortable with him, and he hasn't played in a long time, over a year and a half. Keenum on the distractions. We've done it week by week the last couple weeks. It seemed to work okay. If I can keep my mindset the same and stay consistent in how I prepare, and if I cannot read your guys' stories and stay off different things, then I'm good. They got plenty of weapons. They have Diggs, they have Thielen, they have Rudolph, they have McKinnon to run the ball in place of Cook. Murray had 100 yards against the Ravens. They have won against a easy schedule lately, but 6-2, first place and off the bye against a Redskin team battling injuries.
Sure. And look, we know how good this Minnesota defense has been. Dominated last year. It has once again been an elite unit so far this season. But the difference between the 2016 Vikings, 2017 Vikings, is the offense is working this time around. And certainly the fact that Bradford goes on IR and Bridgewater comes into camp, and that's something the media is focused on. The reality is that it's Case Keenum at center again, and Case Keenum's got a ton of weapons. You talked about Thielen and Diggs and Rudolph. Laquan Treadwell the number one last year, 7 catches for 100 yards over the last 3 games. He's showing signs of life and being the playmaker they thought he might be. So it's a Minnesota team. They've been able to run the football. They've been able to throw the football. Their defense has been pretty darn dominant.
Big win for the Redskins on the road. They couldn't get anything going until the final drive at Seattle. They only had 165 yards until the final possession. And Kirk Cousins made 2 terrific throws. He was under fire the entire game, and he should get some time in the pocket again. They won this game last year at home 26-20. They're getting healthy on the O-line. As we tape this, nothing from Trent Williams yet. Here's Jay Gruden just seeing guys with their helmets. At least they're wearing helmets out at practice today, which is good. Guys are getting back in the flow. Now it's a matter of getting them back up to speed, making sure we get them mentally right as well as physically. See if they can get something going on the ground as well. Fat Rob couldn't do anything against Seattle, 18 yards on 14 carries.
Well, I mean, the issues come with Washington's offensive line. And Sean Laval is healthy and back in practice. Spencer Long, back in practice. Brandon Scherf, back in practice. These are 3 starters who missed the game versus Seattle, and they're all back in practice this week. So you read that Gruden quote. We don't know yet who of that trio is going to suit up. I do know this. Minnesota's defensive front is nasty, just like Seattle's is. And whoever suits up for the Redskins on the offensive line had better be fully healthy, or they're likely to have trouble controlling the line of scrimmage, just like they did last week.
All right, game number 2, Saints and the Bills. Huge matchup, 6-2 against 5-3. The bet online number, the Saints are 3, 46.5 the total. They've won 6 in a row now, and after back-to-back 7-9 seasons, Saints are feeling it, thinking playoffs and home field advantage. The Bills, if they want to end the longest drought without making the playoffs, this is it. Haven't made it since 1999. Vomited on themselves Thursday night against the Jets. Let's see how they bounce back. The Saints' defense has improved. I'm not going to kill them because they got lit up by Bradford and Brady to start the season. Football Outsiders also takes into account the tough competition. Last year, dead last in defense. This year, they're ranked 8th. And don't forget about the offense with Kamara, terrific running back, averaging 6 yards a carry, and figures to get more carries as Ingram continues to fumble. QB coach Joe Lombardi, every week we look to expand the menu of what he's able to do, maybe some of the routes we asked him to run, and every week he keeps responding. It's nice to have a player like that, and it's nice to have a player like Drew Brees, who even at this age is putting up monster numbers and doing it again, Mr. Consistency.
Well, Brees, monster numbers. He has his career high in completion percentage so far this season, 71.6%. His QB rating, his passer rating, 105.0. That's the 3rd best of his entire career, well above his career number of 96.6. How's Brees having the success? You talked about it, Pauly, because of the running game. And Kamara's been a real difference maker. Look, he's averaging 6 yards per carry, but it's key to note, his longest rush, only 25 yards. So we're not talking about fluky big plays influencing that average. He's been real steady at grinding out 4, 5, 6, 7 yards on first downs, making it easy for Drew Brees to convert on third. Worth noting, Kamara also 38 catches, 9.0 yards per catch, and a couple of touchdowns through the air. So it's a Saints defense that looks good. It's a Saints offense that looks good. Of course, playing at home against a weakling like Tampa Bay can be different than traveling to Buffalo in November, taking on a good defensive team like the Buffalo Bills.
Bills 4-0 straight up at home this year. They are 30th in passing yards per game. They get a big boost as Clay's expected to be back, and Benjamin will play as they acquire him in a trade. Jones is likely out as well. The key to the team has been the running game, although McCoy couldn't get anything going in the loss against the Jets on Thursday night. So here it is. Benjamin, you get Clay back, who means a lot to that offense. McDermott, we're going to monitor as we go through the week. Right now, it looks like Benjamin will be ready to go. He's done a good job of getting himself up to speed quickly. And the news as we tape this, he will go. So that's a big boost for the Bills in a terrific game here. Tough spot. What do you think? Tough call.
Well, I mean, look, McCoy was a no-show against the Jets. And we talked about the bad spot for Buffalo with McCoy off his season high in carries, traveling on a short week. Well, now there's the reverse side of that. He only got 12 carries last week. He will be fresh or should be fresh in this ballgame, with the Bills having extra time to prepare. And for as good as the Saints defense has been, this is not a defense that's dominant against the run. McCoy's able to control the game on the ground. That's going to limit Drew Brees' ability to make plays with his arm.
All right, a huge game. Playoff implications, tiebreakers, wild card. No Ezekiel Elliott. It has it all. Cowboys and the Falcons in New England off the bye in Denver. Straight ahead on SportsBet. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.
Go to SBROdds.com. Browse, compare, and shop live odds available at top online sportsbooks.
Back on SportsBet, Betting Insight today, wrapping it up. Big game breakdown, late game. Dallas at Atlanta. Atlanta 348.5 the total. And before we get to Elliott in this game, we got some bad blood here. Jerry Jones has accused the league and compensation committee chairman Arthur Blank of misleading ownership on negotiations with Goodell. And once they approve Goodell's extension, Jones is going to go scorched earth, and he's supposed to sue. He's not happy with what happened with Elliott, who was out the next 4 games for sure, and then his next hearing will be December 1st. So they're not going to have him for a month. And now here we finally get to talk about this. It's Morris, McFadden, or Smith, but not a lot of carries for this guy. These guys, Morris only has 14 carries, so we'll see how much the Dallas offense misses Zeke the next month.
Yeah, and when you talk about the ongoing feud between Falcons owner Arthur Blank and Cowboys owner Jerry Jones, does that have any effect on the field? It might. There's legitimate bad blood between these organizations right now. And with the threat of lawsuits, and God, the NFL gets all, not like the NFL's a stranger to litigation. But when you talk about billionaire owners bickering over a contract that's paying a guy $200 million, nice work, Goodell. $200 million. He's already gotten $200 million from the NFL. He's on the hook for $200 million more if this contract gets signed. The fact that the owners are battling in public adds a little element of bad blood to a contest that already has a lot of implications when it comes to playoff time. Now, look, as you mentioned, no way Zeke goes, and there's no possible injunction that's going to come in like we saw last week, because courts aren't open on Friday for celebrating Veterans Day. So there's no court for him to go to until Monday. So no matter what happens, there will not be Zeke Elliott, which means, as you mentioned, Morris, Smith, and McFadden. That trio is probably as good or better than half the running back combos in the NFL. They're not Zeke Elliott, but they're certainly not hopeless. One thing that Dallas hasn't done, they haven't gotten any of those guys work. I mean, Morris has 14 carries on the season. Smith has 10. McFadden doesn't have a single carry yet. Between them, they have 3 catches. So it's a situation for this Dallas offense with the backs. They haven't gotten a whole lot of work in the system yet. They've been trying to use Zeke Elliott as much as they can. Obviously, not going to have him here. And, of course, a Cowboys defense that has made some strides, but there are issues with Dallas when it comes to stopping the run.
You got that right. You can run on this team. Football Outsider says they're 30th against the run for Atlanta. Their season in the balance here. They lose their 4-5, then they go to Seattle on Monday night. So they're not playing well, and the wheels have come off offensively. How about last year? They scored 58 offensive touchdowns. They have 17 right now. What in the world? And not getting Julio involved. Sark is, unlike what Shanahan was able to do. Look at this graphic. Last year, yards per game, 110, yards per catch, 17. This year, 82.3, and yards per catch, 15.3. The running game has stayed strong, though, and that's important in this matchup. 4.6 yards per carry last year and again this season. So I think they can push around Dallas a little bit. Can they protect Ryan? Because you got to worry about Lawrence and Irving as well. They can put some heat on him and maybe create some pressure as well. I've been doing it every week, and I got a good number last game against the Jets. I keep playing Atlanta under. They have to prove it to me. Atlanta, these totals are too high with Atlanta's offense.
Certainly wouldn't talk you out of it. I mean, the Atlanta Falcons have been an under machine so far this season. And, of course, when you talk about that Cowboys pass rush, the sack percentage way up, 5.4% of dropbacks last year, 8.4% of dropbacks this year. Dallas has been able to sack the opposing QB, and they've made the decision, we're going to put our 4 best players out there, regardless of specific position. They have a very quick and athletic defensive line, but obviously, as you mentioned, that has led to all kinds of issues for the Cowboys against the run so far this season. Too bad for Atlanta. They're not a great running team. And when you look at this game and you look at this one particular graphic right here, Atlanta yards per play differential. A year ago, best in the NFL, plus 0.1 yards per play. That's the difference between what they gain on offense and what they allow on defense. 2017, look at that. It's the exact same, plus 1.1. There is no stat that wise guys pay attention to more than yards per play and yards per play differential. And with the Falcons sitting at number 1, you can understand why they're getting wise guy support week in, week out, despite the fact that number 1 ranking isn't doing anything in terms of producing points the way it did a season ago, as we've said probably 50 times on this show since the start of the season. Steve Sarkisian, he's no Kyle Shanahan.
Sunday Night Football, the Pats, 7.5, 45.5 the total in Denver on NBC. That's the Bet Online number. Hoodie with New England's 12-5 off the bye. These teams have met 7 years in a row. It's the 7th straight year they played. New England's 5-1. The loss, Osweiler beat them on that Sunday night. Denver, everything's gone wrong. They're averaging 10 points a game during this 4-game losing streak. Blown out against Philly. Osweiler will start again. Von Miller tried to sugarcoat it after the loss. The offense did what we needed them to do. You can't put anything on the offense. Our offense played better than it had been doing. As a defense, we said if we got that part, we could start winning. We got that part today, and on defense, we shit the bed today, he says. And he's right. Osweiler sacked 3 times, 2 interceptions. The same thing happened last year. Let's see if it happens this year. There was a bickering and back and forth as the defense was pissed at the offense because they were letting the team down. And it was the New England game last year when they held Brady in check, but they lost at home. They only scored 3 points, and the defense let the offense have it and called them out. Let's see if this happens again because the wheels have come off for the Broncos. Shut out in L.A., and it's gone downhill ever since here. And now they got the champs coming in off a bye.
Sure, and the Von Miller quote is worth talking about for a minute because basically what he was trying to do was he was trying to be political and not throw the offense under the bus, which several other veterans on that team did. But it came across as completely bogus, Paulie. The offense was terrible in Philly, just like it was terrible the previous week and the week before that and the week before that. I mean, we're thinking 3.8 yards per play. Osweiler sacked 3 times, 2 picks. The running backs, 19 carries, 35 yards, less than 2 yards per attempt. This is not going to get fixed for Denver. Their offense is broken. Games that the Broncos are going to compete in, they're going to have to compete because their defense is stepping up. And you know what? After a debacle last week, facing Tom Brady this time around, it sure is the type of game where you would expect an elite defense to bring something to the table.
Patriots defense doing a better job too. Since they had that home loss to Carolina and Cam Newton lit them up, they held Tampa Bay to 14 points. They held the Jets to 17, and the Jets scored 14 right away. They held the Falcons to 7, and it was a garbage touchdown late. And they held the Chargers to 13. And remember, Gordon ripped off a 90-yard run early in the game, and they held them to 2 field goals the rest of the way. My takeaway is they've been doing this as Gilmore's been hurt. Guy can't cover you, Teddy. So they gave him all that money. Since he's been hurt, the defense has turned it around. They bring in Bennett. I don't know what his status is going to be, if he's torn rotator cuff, the reports, I don't know. But they signed Bennett. We'll see his status. Hopefully they get Hogan back. But at least the New England defense on the scoreboard doing a better job the last month.
Sure, but this is a Patriots team that's, it doesn't look like Hogan's going to play. He hasn't been able to practice all week. Edelman's been hurt. Malcolm Mitchell's on IR, obviously. This isn't a team with a ton of downfield threats right now. They're still ranked 31 on the Football Outsiders overall defensive charts, despite the recent improvement. The last wins against the Chargers and the Falcons, it was bend but don't break stuff. They weren't dominating the line of scrimmage. They weren't shutting everyone down in the secondary. But, man, Belichick's so good. I mean, we talk about the little things he does. All right, here's Denver in the midst of a slump. Here's New England coming off a bye. Belichick knows he's got to get his team motivated. He's got to make them afraid of that Broncos offense. This is what he's saying. Quote, they run out of the shotgun, but there are a lot more scheme plays, double teams, pullers, gap-type blocking. They make you defend everything, and that's tough. As I said, when you throw the play-action passes in there with it, it's quite a bit to deal with. So Belichick, no, we're not looking past this team. We're not looking past this offense. He's prepping his guys up. And another Belichick edge, we talk about the little edges. And that's all Belichick is 100 little edges over time. So many little things. Here's another one. What are they doing off the bye where they went and flew out a day earlier than usual so they could train at the Air Force Academy and get accustomed to the altitude? They're also going to train there next week before flying to Mexico City to face Oakland at even higher altitude. So back-to-back altitude games for the Patriots. What does Belichick do? Make sure his team's out there early to get acclimated.
All right, very good. Not a bad NFL card for a change. Week 10, let's get into it. All right, money time, play of the day. I talked about this all week on VSiN. I have Washington in pocket. They can't be underdogs at home, in my opinion. Also, if you want to make, I grabbed Detroit plus 650 to win the NFC North. It's going to get tough for the Vikings. I think there's value. You can still get 3-1 for the Lions to win the division. At DC, Rams at home, at the Lions on Thanksgiving. They already lost to Detroit. At Atlanta, at Carolina. Wow, that's what's coming up for the Vikings. Take a piece of Detroit 3-1 to win the division. Their schedule is easy the rest of the way. But, hopefully we lose. I lose, and the sports bet play of the day wins, Teddy, because you like the Vikings. Take it away.
Sure. For Sunday, not for long term, for Sunday, we're going to take a look at game number 251. The Minnesota Vikings minus 1.5. This QB shuffle made a whole lot easier because Minnesota's got those downfield weapons. Adam Thielen, one of the most underrated players in the sport. Cheap price to lay with Minnesota. I say lay it. Game number 251, Vikings, is our play of the day.
All right, very good. College basketball's here tonight, and we'll recap everything that happens this weekend. 7 games between ranked opponents. The college football, 3 top 10 matchups. We'll run everything down on Monday, and we'll talk to you then. Have a good weekend on SportsBet. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com. Thanks for watching.